Alrighty.
Everybody got your tickets punched?
Alright, wow. Thanks for coming on board and listening to this story. This is my favorite story. You know, I've been a conductor on the Polar Express for, got to be almost 75 years now. And this is my favorite story of all the kids that have ever come on the Polar Express. So I hope that you like it. On Christmas Eve, many years ago, I lay quietly in my bed. I did not rustle the sheets. I breathed slowly and silently. I was listening for a sound a friend of mine said they'd never hear. The ringing bells of Santa's sleigh. There's no such thing as Santa Claus, my friend said, but I knew that he was wrong. Late that night, I did hear a sound, but not the ringing of bells. From outside came the sounds of hissing steam and squeaking metal. I looked through my window and saw a train standing perfectly still in front of my house. It was wrapped in an apron of steam. Snowflakes fell all around it. A conductor stood at the open door of one of the cars. He took a large pocket watch from his vest, then looked up at my window. I put on my slippers and my robe, and I tiptoed downstairs and out the door. All aboard, the conductor yelled, and I ran up to him. Well, he said, are you coming? Where, I asked. Why, to the North Pole, he answered. This is the Polar Express. I took his outstretched hand, and I pulled him aboard.
Mr. Conductor, do you think we could see the picture?
Yeah.
Thanks. That's the one I showed you on the front, you guys, right?
The train was filled with children, all in their pajamas and their nightgowns. We sang Christmas carols, and we ate candies with nougat centers as white as snow. We drank hot cocoa as thick and rich as melted chocolate bars. Outside, the lights of towns and villages flickered in the distance as the Polar Express raced forward. Soon, there were no more lights to be seen. We traveled through cold, dark forests where lean wolves and white rabbits hid from our train as it thundered through the quiet wilderness. We climbed mountains so high it seemed as if we could scrape the moon. But the Polar Express never slowed down. Faster and faster we ran along, rolling over peaks and through valleys like cars on a roller coaster. The mountains turned to hills, the hills took snow-covered plains. We crossed a barren desert of ice, the great polar ice cap. Lights appeared in the distance. They looked like the lights of a strange ocean liner sailing on a frozen sea. There, said the conductor, is the North Pole. Ah, the North Pole. It was a huge city, standing alone at the top of the world, filled with factories where every Christmas toy was made. At first, we saw no elves. They are gathering at the center of the city, the conductor told us. That is where Santa will give the first gift of Christmas. Who will receive it? We all asked, and the conductor answered, he will choose one of you. Look, shouted one of the children, the elves. Outside we saw hundreds of elves. As our train drew closer to the center of the North Pole, we slowed to a crawl. So crowded were the streets with Santa's helpers. When the Polar Express could go no farther, we stopped, and the conductor let us outside. We pressed through the crowd to the edge of a large open circle. In front of us stood Santa's sleigh. The reindeer were excited. They pranced and paced, ringing the silver sleigh bells that hung from their harnesses. It was a magical sound, like one I'd never heard before. Across the circle, the elves moved apart. Santa appeared. The elves cheered wildly. He marched over to us and pointing to me, he said, "Let's have that fellow there." He jumped into a sleigh. The conductor handed me up. I sat on Santa's knee and he asked, "Now what would you like for Christmas?" Well, I knew that I could have any gift that I could imagine, but the thing that I wanted most was not inside one of Santa's giant toy bags. What I wanted more than anything was one silver bell from Santa's sleigh. When I asked, Santa smiled. Then he gave me a hug and he told an elf to cut a bell from a reindeer's harness. The elf tossed it up to Santa and he stood holding the bell high above him and called out, "This is the first gift of Christmas." There on the floor. A clock struck midnight as the elves roared their approval. Santa held the bell to me and I put it in my bathrobe pocket. The conductor helped me down the sleigh. Santa shouted out the reindeer's name and cracked his whip. His team charged forward and climbed into the air. Santa circled once above us, then disappeared into the cold polar night. As soon as we were back inside the Polar Express, the other children asked to see the bell. I reached into my pocket, but the only thing I felt was a hole. I had lost the silver bell from Santa's sleigh. "Let's hurry outside and look for it," one of the children said. But the train gave a sudden lurch and started moving forward, and we were on our way home. It broke my heart to lose that bell. When the train reached my house, I sadly left the other children. I stood at my doorway and waved goodbye. The conductor said something from the moving train, but I couldn't hear him. "What?" I yelled out, and he cupped his hands around his mouth. "Merry Christmas!" he shouted. The Polar Express let out a loud blast from its whistle and sped away. On Christmas morning, my little sister Sarah and I opened up our presents. When it looked as if everything was unwrapped, Sarah found one last small box behind the tree. It had my name in it. You know what was that? That's right. Inside was the silver bell, and there was a note. "Fix that hole in your... Found this on the seat of my sleigh. Fix that hole in your pocket. Signed, Mr. C." I shook the bell. It made the most beautiful sound my sister and I had ever heard. But my mother said, "That's too bad." "Yes," said my father, "it's broken." When I had shaken the bell, my parents had not heard a sound. At one time, most of my friends could hear the bell, but as years passed, it fell silent for all of them. Even Sarah found one Christmas that she could no longer hear its sweet sound. Though I've grown old, the bell still rings for me, as it does for all who truly believe. You can have that one.
Mr. Conductor has
This is, I'm old and my hands don't work. This is a gold bell from Santa's sleigh. Can everybody hear this? Can you hear this? Well, then that must mean that you guys still all believe. So thank you for having me here and let me read my favorite story for you. I appreciate it.
Thank you for coming.
You guys have a great holiday and a Christmas.
Would you like to stay in color with us?
What?
Can you stay in color with us?
I would love to stay in color.
I have a paper for you guys to color. You can draw anything on here. Thank you. It says draw your best Christmas tree, but you can really draw anything that you want. How about that? It's a Polar Express drawing sheet.